while. I moved her to a different place this time. So I have this article that I'd like to share with you from the Atlantic Journal. It says the world is too big for us. Too much going on. Too many crimes. Too much violence. Too much drama. Try as you will, you get behind in the race. It's an incessant strain to keep pace. Still you lose ground. Science empties its discoveries on you so fast that you stagger beneath them in hopeless bewilderment. The political world is news seen so rapidly, you're out of breath trying to keep pace with it all. Everything is high pressure. Human nature can't endure much more. From the Atlantic Journal, 1833. We think we have it the worst that anyone's ever had it. So did they. 1833. Especially when I read the thing about the political news is happening so fast we're out of breath. We can't endure much more. And yet here we are at 2016. Who can do the math really fast? From 1833 to now? Not that quick. A long time. And we are surviving it. Ray Falvey said we will survive it. Absolutely true. 1833, does anybody know who was president then?
Charles.
I have no idea. Charles who?
Charles.
Oh, ask Charles. Like you said, it was Charles. I don't think he's not here. I don't see Charles. Well, somebody want to Google it really quick. Who was president in 1833? All right. So, Cynthia and Mario, you missed it. We're all talking about this thing. Shall I read it again for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
But now you know the punchline.
You won't tell them.
So they heard that part. I just started out by saying this is from the Atlantic Journal. It's an article. And it says the world is too big for us. Too much going on. Too many crimes. Too much violence and drama. Try as you will, you get behind in the race. It's an incessant strain to keep pace. Still you lose ground. Science empties its discoveries on you so fast that you stagger beneath them in hopeless bewilderment. The political world is news seen so rapidly you're out of breath trying to keep pace with it all. Everything is high pressure. Human nature can't endure much more. It was written in 1833.
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson. So, you know, we get the idea that, okay, so they thought that it was high pressure, they can't stand it much more, and yet here we are, all these years later. Obviously, we do survive and we do get through it. So just that in of itself, I can go off on like 5 different messages, couldn't I? But I'm going to stick with the one I planned. So today, right now, in 2016, it seems like there's a whole lot wrong in our planet. Without even having to name things, just take your mind around our globe and go, and here. So much seems to be wrong in this world. And I've kind of been touching on it the last few weeks, you know, how do we rise above different things? So I thought it would be a really good thing for us to shift our focus, at least just for today, and look for what's good. Look for what's right. Did you know that our brains as human beings, especially this part back here, which is the limbic system, it's the fight or flight part of us, we are hardwired to find what's icky. We are hardwired to find the negative. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, Sean, I spend too much time feeling negative, we're just hardwired that way. We actually have to do the work to override that. Because the natural part of us wants to, oh, something might happen. Oh, something's bad. Oh, that's kind of in us as human beings. And it's from, way back when humans first started to walk upright. It's part of our brain system. So don't feel bad if you find yourself getting stuck in what's wrong and what's awful. It happens. But we can override it. The front of our brain can override that. We just have to be aware of it. And we have to purposely look for the good. So let me go to our founder, Ernest Holmes. He He says, there are different mental depths and heights from which we may look out upon life. From whatever level we look, that which we see comes back to us as an invariable law of attraction. That which we look upon is real while we look at it. That's a huge statement. That which we look at is real while we look at it. We arrive at a consciousness of unity only in such degree as we see that what we are looking for, we are looking with, and we are looking at. But that's huge. I'll come back to that in a minute. What I want to focus on right here is he says mental depths and mental heights. Mental depths. Imagine you're in a Buddhist setting, and there's the wise master, and then there's the young monk. The young monk comes up to the wise master and says, "Why is everybody here so happy?" And he says, "Because they've all learned to see beauty and goodness everywhere." And he says, "Well, how come I don't see beauty and goodness everywhere?" And the master says, "Because you have not yet learned to see it in yourself." Ernest Holmes says all the time in this beautiful book, it starts with us. The depths, we must find it in ourselves first. It requires us to go deep, deep into it. And our spiritual practice of contemplation and meditation is the only place that we really do that. Otherwise, it's just noisy stuff. And otherwise, it's just mental stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've said and I've heard, "Well, yeah, I know this stuff." But knowing this stuff is only half of the picture, isn't it? Embodying it, a mental depth, a depth of inner embodiment so that we can live it is what we're talking about. Another example of the depth is Emerson when he says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies." Asking ourselves day by day to look at what lies within us and to remember what that is. What this philosophy teaches is that that one power is not out there, other than the fact that it's the rest of the planet, but you get what he's saying. It is in here. The only place we know anything is in our own mentality. So the inner depth is important for us to explore. The mental heights. In a storm, most birds will either hide out amongst the tree branches or they will flee. Kind of sounds like human beings. But the mighty eagle does something different. When possible, the mighty eagle in a storm goes above it and soars on top of the storm. Rides it out, basically, at this high height. And I'm up there thinking, this high height, what a vantage point that is. Two ideas right there in one story about mental heights. The fact that there is a storm is not ignored, feared, run away from by the eagle. The fact that there's a storm, the eagle just naturally says, "Let me soar higher than the storm." You know, I'm saying the word fact because we have a lot of facts in our lives that seem awful. We don't deny them. But like the eagle, we can learn to ride above them. Ride it out, so to speak. And we can look down from that mental height. The world doesn't look so bad. It's much easier to find what's right when we put a little space, isn't it? I remember when I was young, I had a dance teacher who I really adored. She didn't just teach me to dance, she taught me life stuff. And it was one of those things you've probably all heard that kind of stuck with me. You've probably all heard some version of this. When you're angry and you want to lash out at that person, stop and count to 10 before you say anything. what a wonderful piece of advice, because